Are you a quitter? So you may have multiple different interests and a lot of stuff that excites you, and you tried a lot of these different interests, but you find yourself doing it for few months or a few weeks or a year, but then you move on and you start doing some other interests. And oftentimes, when you stop doing this one thing and you move on to the next one, you start to feel like you just quit the thing, and you start to feel guilty and ashamed of yourself, and maybe even that something is wrong with you. And I'm here to tell you that there's nothing wrong with you. I felt the exact same way. I have a lot of different interests, and over the past 10 years or so, I went on to try this thing, then I moved on to the next one, to the next one, to the next one. And instead of feeling guilty, I actually felt like a winner. And in this video, I'm going to share what exactly changed and how I view these things differently. So I'm not seeing myself as a failure, but actually as someone that consistently succeeds and actually gets out of life what he wants. So in 2019, I set the goal of running a marathon. I've never run a marathon before in my life. I wasn't a runner. I was just hitting the gym really hard. And I couldn't even run for like 2-3 kilometers. And I started training. I created like a little training program for myself, and I started running like 3, 4, 5 times a week. And I began very, very small with like 5 kilometers, and then my legs usually would feel really heavy and a lot of pain. And then I bumped it up to like 10 kilometers, and the max was in my training time around like 15 to 20 kilometers that I actually trained and ran for. And when I started the goal, I was really motivated. I bought myself some running shoes, some cool running clothing and stuff like this. And by around May, I had a talk with my friend, and he was like, hey, I just ran a marathon. I didn't train that much. I just drove to the forest and I just started running it on myself or on my own. And I was like, well, I already trained a little bit. I haven't signed up for a race. I wanted to do the one in Melbourne in, I think it was like end of fall or summer, but then I moved back to Germany in May or something because for some other reasons, and I was like, well, I'm not running it there. I haven't signed up for anything, so I might as well just try it out myself as well. So I remember some random weekend in May in Germany, I prepared myself on a Friday night. I ate a lot of pasta, and then on Saturday at 9 a.m. I would drive to a forest near my house, and there was a 5 kilometer loop. And I would just run this loop for 8 rounds or 8.5 and run my 42k kilometers. And I actually did it. It was very painful. It was not fun. I didn't allow myself to listen to music or anything. And I had some snacks that I put in the bush. And then every round I would just make a stop, eat some protein bar or some carbohydrate bar, and then drink some water and keep going for the next round. And I managed to do it with not that much training, so to speak. It took me 5.5 hours. I wasn't too fast. I wasn't going for time or anything. But I drove home, and you see here, 2:45 p.m. I drove home that day. I sat in my bathtub with a lot of pain, but I felt an incredible emotional relief because I achieved my goal. I set the goal of running a marathon, and I did. And after I ran my marathon, I kept running for a while, but my drive, my motivation wasn't the same anymore. And what I did is I felt like, well, I started to feel a little bit guilty and ashamed for not actually now continuously pushing more and to run more and to keep doing this thing. Because I felt like within me, I was done with it. I kind of made a checkbox. I achieved my goals. I can move on. But back at the time, I still had this story in my mind that I need to keep pushing, and I need to like have this one thing, and I need to specialize in something, and I need to keep this doing for the rest of my life. And since I started running, I felt like I need to continuously run. So in order to force myself to keep being motivated to running, I set another goal to run a ultra marathon, which essentially is anything above 42 kilometers. And I found a race in like August or something for 50 kilometers. I signed up for it. I didn't really train that much because I already lost my drive and my motivation. And I was running here and there like 10 kilometers or sometimes like 20, but very rarely and not that much. Started going back to the gym and started doing like more yoga and stuff, which I was excited about then. And I still forced myself to run it. And I did it in even a better time and longer distance, but I accomplished that goal as well. There's a picture of me with my amazing blonde hair at the time. And after I completed this race, I stopped running completely. I completely lost every drive for it, every motivation, every interest, and I started doing something else. Again, I started doing yoga or some other training, and I was done with it. And the thing is, in the beginning, I felt, again, like I just quit this thing. But the truth is, I didn't quit. I just achieved my goal, and in other ways, like many other people do it, where they then start running and then they set another goal and they set another goal and they set another marathon and another one, whatever that excites them. I achieved my goal and then I wanted to move on to a different interest. Because for me, an amazing life is not to find this one thing and then continuously go deeper. I want to be the guy that sets the goal of running a marathon or doing a bike race or hiking up a mountain or doing any sport or anything, setting a goal, achieving a goal, and then moving on to a different interest, so I can look back on a life where I achieved a lot of different goals and a lot of different interests. That's a rich life for me. But since I was comparing myself to other people, it felt like failure and quitting. But again, I achieved my goal and I had to make the switch in my mind that the moment I achieve my goal in something, most of the time I lose my interest for it and I'm kind of done and I'm ready to move on to something else. And it's not working for me to force myself to go deeper on it and to do more of it, because I was done the moment I achieved my goal. And this is the thing. Oftentimes I would start getting into things and I didn't set the goal properly, so I didn't know when it was done for me. And then when I moved on, it felt like quitting because I wasn't aware of what my goal was. Because most of the time when I moved on from one interest to another one, I achieved my goal, I have gotten out of it what I wanted to get out of it, and I'm ready to move on. So the reframing that needs to take place there is, when I move on, I have probably achieved my goal, and most likely I did, especially if you wrote it down properly in the beginning, and I'm ready to move on. Like, there's nothing more for me to gain here, and I don't get excited of making it bigger and whatnot. I achieved my goal and I'm ready to move on. And just by being aware of this, it makes me see myself as a winner and not a quitter, because I achieve my goals and then I move on. If you set a goal and you start doing it for 2 weeks and then you quit and you move on to something else because it became hard, that's something different. But most of the time you probably started doing it, you became good at it, and you achieved your goal that you've kind of set in your subconscious, and you've gotten out of it what you wanted, and then you moved on. And that's winning.